Te damos la bienvenida. Nos emociona verte y saber que vamos a disfrutar y a aprender juntos. Antes de empezar, queremos contarte que vamos a atesorar los momentos que viviremos juntos a través de fotografías y videos. Al estar aquí, consideramos que estás de acuerdo con que podamos utilizar las imágenes en que aparezcas tú en los diferentes medios y plataformas de Confama. Si prefieres no participar en nuestras fotos o grabaciones, no dudes en acercarte a nuestro equipo. Queremos que tu experiencia sea la mejor. Confama, vigilado Supersubsidio.
To arrive, brings your mind, body, your creativity, and that spark that it's going to connect a community that is transforming the realities of Latin America. We welcome to the second date of the third International Encounter of Behavioral Science Reflections for Latin America, an opportunity to connect the voice that been important for this field to exist, to renew conversations about methodology trends that are actually opening the path for behavioral science. It's wonderful to be next to you and to welcome and to open ideas today. Today, a vibrant community is once again with a possibility that science offers to continue transforming the realities of Latin America. That's right, us, and it's very nice to meet again. And we have a very interesting question, a very provoking question, and that you mentioned about continuing transforming reality. That question is, what if cooperating would be the common sense to build together the future? This third international summit of behavioral science is the fantastic alliances, connections that reminds us that the seed has species we get from here, which is cooperation. And it's very specific because in uncertainty moments like these ones, sometimes it's difficult to see cooperation as something natural, that's something that is in our DNA, that something has actually traced the trajectory for being both of us here standing, but also a whole community connected, and altruism that takes us to believe in a better world. That's true. But that's why we are here. Hundreds of enthusiastic of behavioral sciences and thousands of people connected for about 8 countries to converse around these questions. So that's fantastic, and this community is been growing, and we're going to explore how to apply behavioral science to imagine and build sustainable futures. We're going to talk about data trends, very close experiments to what happened to the reality to many of you that are actually here, and many of you that are looking at us to the through online. And the most emotional thing is we want that you connect with that live network. We want you to acknowledge those academic elites, all those big important companies that are actually contributing to this development of behavioral science by connecting the public sector. This event, as I mentioned to you,
de que en una conversación la Universidad de los Andes, la Alcaldía de Bogotá, Confama, el Behavioral Insights Team se conectaran con un propósito superior para hacer que las ciencias del comportamiento continúen transformando y revelando asuntos absolutamente importantes para las realidades de América Latina.
Así es, gracias Os por esa mención a la fuerza de lo colectivo también como tangible en estar todos y todas acá presentes. Así que si están siguiendo esta transmisión, también les invitamos a usar el numeral Cooperar nos une para compartir ideas, hallazgos, preguntas o simplemente saludar a quienes están del otro lado de la pantalla.
Buenísimo ponerle esa mención porque estamos conectados con el mundo. Un continente se está conectando a través de las posibilidades de las ciencias del comportamiento. Así que los invitamos a que compartan en sus redes sociales. Ya están justamente rodando en nuestras redes los links de transmisión. Y hay algo muy interesante a propósito para recordar y volvernos en el tiempo, Pearl, y es que hace 2 años más de 20,000 personas interactuaron con los contenidos digitales del segundo encuentro de Ciencias del Comportamiento. Esto es una señal clara de que el campo está creciendo rápido. Así que los invitamos en este momento a conocer el manifiesto que le da latidos y que le da sentido a esta edición del tercer Encuentro Internacional de Ciencias del Comportamiento.
En donde hay seres humanos, hay decisiones, y en donde hay decisiones, hay comportamientos. Por eso las ciencias del comportamiento están en todas partes. Hoy, desde Latinoamérica, les damos la bienvenida al tercer Encuentro Internacional de Ciencias del Comportamiento, una oportunidad para diseñar mejores mundos. Bienvenidos.
Después de décadas de avances en este campo, Latinoamérica no es solo territorio de aplicación, hoy es puente, impulso y faro.
Desde la equidad de género, la salud pública y el diseño de ciudades, hasta la inclusión financiera y la sostenibilidad,
nuestra región ha inspirado transformaciones profundas y de alto impacto.
Transformaciones que cierran brechas, multiplican oportunidades y transforman la manera en que habitamos nuestras ciudades.
También en cómo tomamos decisiones de política pública, gestionamos articulaciones y activamos canales de economía y productividad.
Hoy el mundo nos pide construir puentes donde hay abismos. Esto no solamente permitirá que posturas que a veces están lejanas puedan acercarse y que en esa perspectiva podamos trabajar de manera colaborativa y en equipo para lograr propósitos comunes.
Porque el futuro no es un destino que se anticipa, sino un acto que se construye. Y solo en la cooperación se encuentra su arquitectura.
Hoy, en medio de desafíos globales y locales que sacuden nuestras certezas, una pregunta se vuelve urgente.
¿y si cooperar es el sentido común para construir juntos el futuro?
Cooperar es recordar cómo llegamos hasta aquí, ese gesto humano tan antiguo como esencial de mirarnos a los ojos, señalar el horizonte y decir sin palabras, vamos juntos.
No caminamos solos. Hoy diversas empresas, gobiernos, universidades y organizaciones sociales en América Latina
se inspiran en las ciencias del comportamiento para transformar su visión del mundo.
Cooperar está en lo profundo de la memoria de nuestra especie y es la semilla de lo que está por venir.
Este encuentro internacional es una oportunidad para reconocernos como región.
Para inspirarnos en las voces que han sido determinantes para que este campo exista.
Para aprender nuevas metodologías y tejer conexiones que nos acercarán al futuro.
¿Cuáles son nuestros próximos pasos para diseñar una región más justa, humana y posible?
Desde América Latina, con la complejidad de nuestras historias y la riqueza de nuestras diferencias, tenemos algo urgente y valioso que decirle al mundo.
El futuro de las ciencias del comportamiento se escribe aquí.
Bueno. Con este priming de curiosidad y creatividad, invitamos al escenario a Juan Esteban Restrepo, responsable del Laboratorio de Hábitos y Ciencias del Comportamiento, para que le dé la bienvenida.
Gracias. Hola a todos, buenos días, gracias por venir, gracias por estar acá. Yo estoy muy feliz y muy orgulloso porque esto no es un trabajo de un mes, ni de dos, ni de tres, es casi un año construyendo esta oportunidad. Hoy ustedes van a tener la oportunidad, hoy y mañana, incluso ayer empezamos en Bogotá, van a poder tener y compartir con la gente que está moviendo las ciencias del comportamiento en el planeta. Hoy aquí en este auditorio está Ganna Pogrebna, directora del Instituto Alan Institute. Vamos a hablar de ciencias del comportamiento, Big Data y analítica de datos. Está con nosotros también Alistair Fieldes, vicedecano del IE, director del pregrado en ciencias del comportamiento allá en España. También tenemos a Gonzalo Camiña, CEO de B-Way, una gran consultora hispanoamericana. Tenemos a Julián, director del equipo más grande de ciencias del comportamiento de todo el planeta, para mi gusto. Entonces tienen a un montón de invitados, a un montón de gente. Tienen a Linnea Gandhi, alumna de Richard Taylor. Tienen a una gente muy especial acá que van a poder compartir con ellos, tómense foto con ellos, no les dé pena preguntarles cosas, no les dé pena escribirle por LinkedIn, porque de eso se trata este evento y este encuentro. Esto es una celebración y lo que queremos hacer y mostrar es que las ciencias del comportamiento funcionan y funcionan muy bien. Nosotros en Confama las utilizamos para eliminar barreras, para mejorar la cultura organizacional, para diseñar mejores productos y servicios, para impulsar nuestras matrículas, para hacer mejores procesos de cobranza, para comunicar mejor, para diseñar mejores piezas, pero también las utilizamos sobre todo para conectar con gente que piensa diferente a nosotros. Entonces, en Confama las ciencias del comportamiento han sido una oportunidad de conexión, de propósito, de estrategia, pero también de cooperación. Creemos que la cooperación es el camino. Nosotros sabemos que la evolución no solamente premia la adaptación de los mejores o de los más adaptados y los más inteligentes, sino que la evolución también premia la cooperación. Y en este momentico el planeta está pasando por situaciones sociales, políticas y económicas complejas que requieren mucha cooperación, y por eso nos animamos a reunir speakers que ni siquiera se conocían entre ellos, a ciencias, institutos y organizaciones que nunca habían conversado entre ellos. Entonces hicimos un esfuerzo muy grande con estos aliados que están ahí para que ustedes pudieran disfrutar de esto, se conectaran y vivan a profundidad, porque de aquí salen nuevos y mejores empleos, posibilidades de investigación, posibilidades de nuevas empresas, posibilidades de nuevas consultorías, posibilidades de conocer el mundo. Así me ha pasado a mí, esa ha sido mi historia personal con las ciencias del comportamiento, una oportunidad de conexión, donde me he dejado llevar, y hoy tenemos la oportunidad de tener este auditorio lleno y muchas personas conectadas. Quiero darle las gracias a Confama, a todo el equipo de comunicaciones, a Mercadeo, a empresas, a comunicaciones, pero en especial al Laboratorio de Hábitos y de Ciencias del Comportamiento, a David, el director de Confama, a David Escobar, a Mauricio, nuestro líder de estrategia, porque esto es posible gracias a una institución que le apostó a las ciencias del comportamiento como estrategia para alcanzar su propósito superior. Mil y mil gracias por estar acá. Pídanle foto a estos señores y a estas señoras, que de verdad vale la pena vivir esto que estamos viviendo. Muchas gracias por venir, disfruten, aprendamos y aprovechen esto como una palanca de progreso. Bienvenidos.
Qué emocionante, Juanes, escuchar eso. Para abrir esta jornada, queremos invitarles a cruzar una frontera en la que se encuentran fuerzas absolutamente poderosas que no solamente están moldeando el presente que vivimos, sino que le están dando dirección al futuro. Esas fronteras son el comportamiento, los datos y la inteligencia artificial. Desde Australia, nuestra primera invitada tomó un avión hace varios días para llegar hasta aquí, donde dirige el Artificial Intelligence and Cyber Futures Institute, hasta el Reino Unido, en donde liderará la estrategia del Alan Turing Institute, uno de los lugares o centros de pensamiento que ha puesto en el mapa un campo tan importante para este momento como el Behavioral Data Science. Ganna ha demostrado cómo el rigor académico puede ponerse al servicio de soluciones con impacto.
Ganna ha aplicado su conocimiento en áreas como sostenibilidad, ciberseguridad y salud digital, y ha sido reconocida con premios como el Tech Woman 100 y el Asia Pacific Woman in AI Award. Su trabajo conecta disciplinas y contextos para enfrentar algunos de los mayores desafíos de nuestro tiempo.
Pareciera ayer, cuando veíamos esos primeros capítulos de Black Mirror y pensábamos que los algoritmos eran solo un asunto de películas. Ahora los tenemos decidiendo desde qué comemos hasta las noticias que vemos. Y si usáramos ese poder para diseñar y promover soluciones de impacto a los principales desafíos locales y regionales que atraviesan a Colombia.
¿Y ustedes, alguna vez han sentido que un algoritmo los conoce mejor que su propia familia? Nuestra invitada de hoy ha encontrado maneras de hacer que esa inteligencia artificial trabaje para construir futuros sostenibles y humanos. Así que preparen sus preguntas y con ustedes Ganna Pogrebna con su conferencia de los blockbusters a futuros sostenibles con la ciencia de datos del comportamiento.
Muchas gracias por esa introducción tan cálida. Esta es la primera vez que estoy aquí en Colombia. No hablo español, pido disculpas, van a tener que escuchar un traductor, creo. o mi inglés con un acento fuerte ucraniano. Soy una científica de ciencias del comportamiento. Y inicialmente empecé en un campo de microeconomía y después trabajé en un departamento de ingeniería y me dijeron qué quería hacer. Y yo dije, quería ser una científica de datos de comportamiento porque hice uno de los modelos híbridos entre ciencias del comportamiento y ciencias de datos. Eso es lo que voy a hablar hoy, el día de hoy. Valent debe liderar el grupo a cerca de 300 personas más o menos. Y en Australia tiene un instituto que tiene como 60 personas y empleamos desde parte de cuanto física y todos están haciendo trabajo muy importante en ciencias del comportamiento. Hoy decidí hacer algo diferente de lo que hice ayer en Bogotá.
The movie companies, so I worked with all of these companies and more, but my most famous work is in movies. And basically, a few years ago when I started behavioral data science, I wrote a paper with a few colleagues, and this paper predicted revenue of movies by just looking at scripts, okay? So basically, by reading the script, the algorithm predicted how much the movie is going to make. And that paper became very famous, and as of today, I think it's read by over 50,000 people. So it's kind of one of the top read papers in operational research. You will ask me what behavioral data science is. So on this slide, I have a short summary, but basically it's a combination of behavioral methods and data science methods. And currently we have a lot of options to engage with artificial intelligence, generative AI. You all, I'm sure, know about ChatGPT and probably use it on a daily basis. You probably know about other generative AI tools like Claude and others. And yeah, if you want to know more about the field, we are publishing a handbook of behavioral data science with Cambridge University Press. And there are over 50 authors who wrote really cool chapters in different areas of behavioral data science. Okay, so I'm going to start with saying that generally, when we look at nations, organizations, or individuals, they don't actually have data problems. They have decision problems, okay? And these decision problems could be solved with data. And this is kind of what I do and what my team does. We kind of are trying to find interesting decision problems in organizations and help solve these problems using behavioral insights and data. And usually when you come to any business or any public sector organization, you will see two types of people. The first type would be behavioral scientists or behavioral insights. They normally sit somewhere close to CEO, and they're interested in the why. Why customers are doing this, why we are doing this as an organization. And they're using a lot of randomized control trials, experiments, surveys in their work. Yeah, but all these methods are aimed at just answering the question why, right? And then we have another bunch of people who normally sit somewhere in the basement. These are data scientists, so they're outsourced somewhere to an Indian office. And these people are looking at patterns and trends. So they have hard data, and they're trying to predict behavior by just looking at trends in data. And the first thing that we do when we come in, we put these people together and tell them that actually by looking at very simple data, we probably can get into the why, to answer the question why we're doing things. So that's kind of what behavioral data science is all about. Okay, so I promised you that I'm going to talk about motion pictures industry, and yeah, I worked with pretty much every single company that you can think of in movies, Netflix, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, everything, Miramax. And basically, yeah, there are kind of 5 lessons that I think we can learn from movies industry. And what I'm going to show you is some work that I did on movies, but also how this work translated into other industries and other sectors. Before we go there, we're going to play a little game, okay? So, I'm just going to show you a few pictures, and I want you to tell me whether you think these are real people or they are computer generated. Everybody with me? Okay, cool. Now, how many people think that these are real people? Okay, brilliant. Let's go to the next one. How many people think that these are real people? Okay. How many people think that these are real people? Okay. How many people think that these are real people? All right, okay, well, you were like almost spot on. I think the only question that you kind of got wrong was the first one. So the first picture was from the film Spartacus. It's a very old film, and every single person in that picture is a real person. There are 5,000 people in that shot, and every single person is a human being, okay? Gladiator, also every single person is a real person. So it's an old film, the old Gladiator, not the current, the current one that just came out. But if we look at these other 2 movies, Centurion and Troy, every single person in the shot is computer generated, okay? So notice like that in these types of environments and movie environments, we have a lot of automation, right? And we're cool with that. It's okay to watch a movie with some computer-generated people, and sometimes we can't even tell the difference, right? Some of you got a few questions wrong, right? And that's okay. This is what movies are all about. They're supposed to have CGI that is like good, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't go to movies. Right, so the first lesson that we can learn from this is that smart automation actually works, right? So what we've done, we have actually conducted an analysis of automation in various roles in films, and we figured out one thing, is that the most successful companies actually have a ratio of automation of about 2/3 to 1/3, meaning that 2/3 automated tasks and 1/3 creative tasks. Right? So 1/3 is human component and 2/3 is machine component. So why do we need automation in movies? Well, movies are very expensive to make. So if you make everything by hand, this is going to be a very expensive movie, right? There are some companies who do that. For example, Aardman. So if you've watched cartoons like Wallace and Gromit, so they do everything by hand, like pretty much every single thing. But there is still a lot of automation in these movies. Like, for example, when we go to post-production or marketing, there is a lot of automation there. Yeah, so how exactly did we do this analysis? And this is where behavioral data science comes in. So we actually look at every stage of the movie production process, and we mine the entire cast and crew names. So it's a list, and basically for each person, we figure out how much of the job was automated and how much of the job was kind of humanly executed during the movie. And then for each movie, we have kind of things like this. So we know exactly, so the green thing would be the creative component, and the red and the yellow things would be the automated components. And then we can actually do it by year, by company, and this is just pre-pandemic stats. I deliberately selected pre-pandemic because like during pandemic, there was a slight problem with the market, like people couldn't go to work, so there was a lot more automation than we would normally have. But as you can see, like we didn't have practically any automation when the movies just started at the beginning of 20th century, but then by 2019 there was quite a lot of automation. Yeah, so automation works, and in fact, if you want to be a successful movie company, you would have a lot of automation. So how does that translate to other areas? Yeah, so we already know that in some sectors, machines have completely replaced humans. Like for example, if we look at radiology, the only reason why we have radiology doctors is because machine cannot legally provide a diagnosis. But radiology algorithms are very good. They are actually detecting anomalies a lot better than the humans. And here comes the dilemma, when we ask people about automation, normally everyone says, okay, my sector will be 100% affected by automation, but my job will not be, okay? So people are kind of in this denial, but the automation will catch up with us, and it will be definitely everybody's problem. There are some professions that are in high risk, and previously we thought that creative professions are less of a risk than others, but currently we know that that's not the case. Again, using behavioral data science methods, what we can do is we can look at manual tasks, creative tasks, and social tasks, social intelligence tasks, and we can do analysis like this. So effectively, we can actually understand the probability of computerization or automation in different professions, and we can map it. We normally map this for different companies, okay? So all of it just involves talking to people, understanding what percentage of the job could be automated. How do you think we do that? Any ideas? Well, if you can exactly describe what you're doing, describe it precisely, step by step, I come to work and I do this, and this, then your job is at risk of being automated. Okay? If you cannot describe it, if you're like a university professor like myself, and every day is different and slightly crazy, then you probably are in low risk of being automated. Yeah, so and this is what this analysis normally looks like. So this is kind of what we did for different types of IT jobs, and basically this study found that in IT jobs, the main problem is the social component, so we probably don't teach people correctly, so we don't teach people to interact when they're studying computer science, and we should. Yeah, and the main point of this whole thing is that creativity is no longer saving us. What is saving us is transferable skills, and transferable skills are only learned if we are getting ourselves in different research situations or different project situations where things do not work as planned, and we learn something new, and we constantly think differently. I'm going to give you one example of a project where we do exactly that with a community of artists that do not have any access to technology. They don't even have normal access to internet, but we have created a tool for them. And this is a tool in sustainable fashion. So basically what they can do is they can load their drawings. So this is just a drawing of a fashion model, right? So we have some garment here. And what this tool does, it basically assesses the technical level of a designer, and it produces the output in a video format that they can show to potential investors or show to a fashion show committee, things like that. So basically this video, Can I ask the guys at the back to maybe switch on the video if we can watch it? That'd be awesome. Thank you. Oh. Yeah, brilliant. So this basically this video was generated, and every single person here is not a real person. So what we do is we just take this drawing like this, and we produce a video like this. And this is a catwalk video. So why is it important? It's important because fashion designers, in order to produce a fashion show like that and exhibit it, it would take a lot of money, a lot of effort, and a lot of technical expertise. But this tool allows them, so this is the model right here, right? So again, this is not a real person. This is a completely computer-generated person, generated out of the image, one image. Okay? And so, yeah, you can produce your entire fashion show, and you can go get yourself some investors, right? And again, this is catered to the technical level of the designer, and they can basically decide how they want the fashion show. Is it more kind of glamorous event? Is it more down-to-earth event? Things like this. So, yeah. there you go. Let's move on. I told you already about this paper. So this paper was about mapping profit of movies from scripts. So basically what we figured out here, so we mined the entire database of IMDb, and then we also got the scripts for movies, and we also had a smaller data set with movie revenues. And what we figured out was that each movie could be mapped in terms of its sentiment, okay? So the sentiment of the movie, so I know that you can't really see the numbers here, but this is beginning of the movie, this is the end of the movie, and this is sad messages, and this is happy messages, right? So basically, what it shows you is how sentiment travels throughout the film. So what we figured out was that all movies in English language, unfortunately, I don't know what happens with movies in Spanish, might be different, but everything that's in English would fall within these 6 different, we call them emotional arcs, okay? And this one, the U-shaped arc, when you start with happy messages, you go to sad messages, and you come back to happy message, that gives you more money than any other arc. Okay? So basically what it tells you is that, it doesn't tell you, by the way, that we should only make movies with this arc because we want to make money. What it tells you is that, you know, if you're a movie company, you might want to invest some money into this activity, but then you can be artistic with the rest of your budget, okay? You can put your 80% of your budget here, and then you can be artistic with everything else. When I first presented it, like, people laughed at me, but then Netflix actually implemented this policy. And as you know, they're quite flexible with some of their budgets, and they, for example, funded the film Roma, which was, you know, multiple Oscar winner, the year when this paper came out, and that's exactly why they, you know, how they did it. They basically put some of their budget in the profit pot and some of the budget in the creative pot. We also do very similar work with trailers, and trailers are a nightmare because in movies we have 90 minutes worth of text. Here we've got a lot of information, but it's all different. We have sound, not music, notice, not score, not songs. We have sound, we have image, we have something on screen, like, you know, from the developers, so from the director of whatever movie, right? So then we have also digital print, particular color that is on screen. So all of this goes into one analysis, and we are deriving sentiment. And the way we're deriving these sentiments is, let me just skip ahead here. Yeah, so we are using psychological theory, Plutchik wheel of emotions, and we're trying to place you on this wheel of emotions. So we collect a lot of data from people who are watching trailers, and we're trying to figure out how these emotions are correlated with what people see on screen. Yeah. Let me just quickly come back here. So the point here is also that, you know, even though we have these sentiment patterns, these sentiment patterns are not necessarily just telling us that there is one perfect formula for success. So this is, for example, all the Batman movies. And the majority of superhero movies are tragedies. Okay, they start on a high note and they go like down, 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 down. So if you watched the Avengers, right? So this probably the most profitable film of all time is Infinity War. And Infinity War is a tragedy because half of the universe dies at the end. And that's like very, very, like one of the top earning movies. So the trick here is that if you are doing a movie that is not in U-shape, that is like downward sloping movie, right? Then you need to be really careful. You need to be really careful about your budget and about the genre in which you're doing it. So in this case, if you're shooting a tragedy, it should be epic tragedy, right? Like, so you need to put at least 100 million into this film, and then it will be an epic tragedy. Yeah. So So the point of this whole analysis is that we are looking at different types of consumer sentiment, and that allows us to actually target different groups of consumers dependent on how they are perceiving trailers or movies, things like this. Yeah, with trailers, like I said to you before, the problem is extremely difficult mathematically. But what we found through this process is that people really like emotional roller coasters. So the most successful movies, like John Wick movies, for example, the way they do the trailers is it's like, you know, you have emotional peak and then you have emotional drop down. And this is how the trailer is. It constantly keeps you on edge, right? All right, so what do we learn from this? Well, we learn a lot about customer segmentation from these types of things. And we can apply this to all sorts of things. We do even studies in cybersecurity and defense when we segment people into different groups and then offer them different types of education or products. And the main thing about customer segmentation is not only it needs to be, you know, sentiment charged, so with the study that I just showed you, but also it needs to be adaptive and it needs to be implicit. So the less you ask people directly, the better off you are. This is an example of a very big bank in UK that had very traditional segments. Okay, they had 12 segments, very precise. Right, but these were static segments. And this is what people thought about this bank. Okay? So when we came in, we looked at all of this and we made it dynamic. And basically, the system would incorporate customer sentiment, a lot of information about what customers interacted with in terms of app and other tools. And it allowed you to actually map different customers to different products, right? And with these studies, what is really cool about behavioral data science is not the fact that, you know, we take a product and match it to the customer, but we're trying to figure out what the customer may want tomorrow. So we design a product that is customized and will be liked by definition. Okay, this is a very fun project that we did with retail. So, as you know, a lot of retail companies currently have tools when you can scan yourself and then you can have like, you can try the garment on yourself. How many people saw those types of tools? Okay, some of you, that's great. So they came to us and they said, oh, people don't interact with these tools. Okay. We kind of started to look into this whole thing and wanted to know why. And the problem was that the majority of retail customers are women, okay? And women do not trust the digital picture of themselves. Any guesses why? Well, because women always think that they are bigger than they actually are, okay? So we have conducted lots of these experiments. So we would put a lady in front of a lineup, and we would have sizes from 6 to 18. Okay, in front of you. And what would normally happen is that guys would usually pick up a size that is true to them. Maybe they will be slightly off on occasion, but women always pick someone 2 sizes bigger than they are. Okay, so if you're size 10, you would be picking size 14. Okay, so that's what happens. So obviously, when you're scanning yourself, you do not trust the image. You think, that person is thinner than I am, doesn't look like me, so I'm not going to buy this garment because it definitely will not fit if I buy it. So what do we do? Again, in this case, so we actually calibrate women. So we created a tool that allows you to look at different sizes, right? So this is your true size. This would be a bigger size. It would be a smaller size. And effectively, what normally happens is they pick someone bigger. We say, okay, this is the image that you picked, but actually, this is you. Okay? And then we can try the garments on. And so we had, like with one retailer, we had a pretty large study with representative sample of the customers. And yeah, like all the customers were very satisfied with this system of collaboration, and we're currently like expanding the study to other 4 retailers. How am I doing for time? Sorry. Does anyone know? Okay, cool. I'm going to continue until you cut me off, I guess. But I just want to hear some questions, so that's why I'm asking. Okay, working with customer experiences. Okay, I really love this stuff. So this is the parts where we actually deliver content to people. So again, we worked with quite a few TV companies, for example, Sky TV, Channel 4, other companies. So here's the cool thing that you can do in TV format. So we can basically look at content of the film or TV program that is shown to you, and then we can basically match it with the adverts that we are showing to people. So for example, in this episode, Sheldon and Amy would watch a sci-fi movie, and then we'll be showing a sci-fi advertisement, right, in the break. So it makes it very relevant. And we are extremely successful in this. But again, the problem here, which is kind of what we see in a lot of companies, is that again, it's product first, not customer first. So a lot of my time is telling the movie companies that they shouldn't look at people just considering their demographics, but they should consider their behavior, what exactly the customer is doing, right? Because you can have exactly the same demographic, but completely different behavior, right? So we have, I don't know, King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, exactly the same age, exactly the same demographic, 2 rich people, both live in the castle, but completely different behaviors, right? Similarly here, so if we go from like, this static view, so we kind of always fit in it backwards, right? We have a product, a particular TV program, or a particular garment, or any product that you can imagine, and we're trying to fit it to customer. So instead, we should be doing the other way around, right? We need to figure out what the customer wants and then sell it to them. Yeah. So this is a project that we've done with a big, large global bank. Just for the sake of argument, let's call this bank HSBC. So here, basically, what we've done was we worked with complaints. Okay, so all customer complaints in the UK need to be resolved within 72 hours. And if you don't do it, FCA, who is the financial regulator, they have a blacklist, okay? And you have, so this particular bank was on the 2nd place from the bottom when they approached us. And yeah, we actually looked at the customer journeys. So we had a lot of data. And effectively, what we did is a behavioral segmentation of the types of customers who were complaining. And we figured out basically that there were many factors that went into loan complaints. But one of the biggest problems was that people could not complete their journey. So for example, you would come to the bank to open an account, and you wouldn't open an account. That is going to piss you off, right? Because this is what you were there for, and that didn't happen. So, and we also figured out that people were particularly, so there were different types, but kind of the general result for all types was this. And we also figured out that people really cared that the bank actually did everything in their power to get them the result that they wanted. So you don't necessarily complete the journey, but you do everything in your power to be there. This kind of reminds me of a film. It's a very bad film with Nicolas Cage. Is called Lord of War. And in this, how many people saw the film? Okay, so there is a moment in this film when he meets his future wife, and he kind of does really cool stuff, like with a plane flying with a flag saying, "I love you," and all of that kind of thing. And the phrase there is that you cannot make someone fall in love with you, but you can seriously improve the odds. Okay, and this is exactly what we see here. So if you do everything in your power to help the customer will appreciate it, right? They will not fall in love with you, but you will seriously improve the odds of falling in love with you. Another thing that we do like that is kind of from completely different area, but using absolutely the same logic, is natural disasters relief. So this is a project where we actually track people's pictures as the flood progresses, and we can actually see where the flood is going to go and predict what is the next area that is going to be affected. And this again includes the journey, how exactly you are posting, what type of words you are using, what sentiment goes into the descriptions, and it allows us to save lives. Okay, so this is quite a big deal. And again, like we can track different types of people who are posting online. Some are some providing more accurate information, more accurate descriptions, and again, we can get to a more accurate prediction of the natural disaster. Okay, automating with emerging tech and innovative solutions. Okay, this is not a movie I worked on, but one of my friends worked on the Gravity movie. And as you know, they got an Oscar for special effects. And all the special effects in that movie were basically first designed using a digital twin. So it was a bunch of physicists sitting there and doing some really cool work. And yeah, if you didn't watch Gravity, it's basically George Clooney is trying to get away from Sandra Bullock as far as possible in space. Okay. So basically, currently we have lots of cool tools. So we have new data, particularly synthetic data that we didn't have before. So we can simulate what the customers are going to do, how they're going to react to different things. We can actually design a whole system with different behavioral types in it. So this is a system for a media company to create a media campaign and provide different content to different types of customers using digital twin. Digital twins, if you kind of think about it as something expensive and horrible, actually it's not. These are two recent Harvard Business Review articles that you can read where we explain how to do it in corporate setting and also in small and medium enterprise setting. So this particular article talks about how we created a smart beer project with a tiny little brewery using a digital twin. So I'm gonna let you read that. But basically, the way digital twins work, you have a physical layer, you have a digital layer, a network layer in between, and you can effectively simulate data for your strategy. So you can, instead of running experiments, you can just simulate lots of different options, and instead of running 16 different experiments or A/B testing, you can just run 1 or 2, right, and save money. Yeah, you can do a lot of innovative modeling. I'm not gonna dwell on this. How many people heard about collaborative filtering? Okay, cool. So you all know about collaborative filtering if you ever shopped on Amazon, okay? So when you go on Amazon and try to buy something, it says, people who bought this item also bought that item. That's that model, collaborative filtering, okay? You learned something from me today. So basically what it does is, for example, I'm gonna use Alistair as a guinea pig here. So for example, Alistair and I, we went online and we bought the same item. Now, the algorithm considers us to be similar, okay? And so now everything that he bought in the last months would be offered to me, and everything that I bought would be offered to him, okay? That's how it works. So pretty stupid algorithm. Why is it stupid algorithm? Because people buy a lot of random stuff. Okay, it has nothing to do with your preferences usually. And so what we do in this particular project, so we designed an app that works like Tinder only for shop offers, okay? And we ran this experiment for several years in Singapore. So you go into a shopping center and you get offers on your cell phone in the app. So we don't know how much you spent in the shop, but we know whether you used this like digital voucher that we gave you, right? And basically we're running different types of models, one random model, one typical machine learning or deep learning model, and the model where we introduce noise into. So it's just a noise model from decision theory, okay? And guess what? The model with noise performs a lot better than any other model because people are not making consistent rational decisions all the time. And decision theory helps us predict why that happens. Yeah, you can also use like really innovative methods like anthropomorphic learning. I mean, this is the model that I'm particularly famous about. I'm not going to dwell on it, but basically the point here is that imagine that we have, well, two cars, one red, one blue. So they're very similar, and they have lots of attributes, right? But one thing that they're different, how they're different is color, right? So when you are running a regular model, a machine learning model, what the model would do, it will pick all the attributes of blue car, all the attributes of red car, and then basically make some baskets with different characteristics. You don't know what's inside the baskets, right? After certain period of time, we observed what you've chosen. You've chosen either blue car or red car. And then the model will basically tell you, this basket, we don't know what's inside it, but it predicts really well what you've chosen. So there are lots of problems here, right? The algorithm is a black box. It's long because you have to sample all the characteristics. But if we apply a behavioral shortcut, so we know that color will be an important component here, right? This is a very simple example. So the color will be a factor. So now, if I apply a different logic to selecting these baskets, I can only sample things where color is a component, right? Or color is an important component. So now I don't need to sample everything. I just sample a subset. So my calculations are sliced in half. It costs less to calculate, and I'm more accurate because I'm considering color as an important factor. Okay, so this is what anthropomorphic learning is all about. We also have AI agents, lots of different choices now with AI agents talking to themselves, talking to each other. Lots of interesting work there. Again, I'm not gonna discuss this in detail, but again, you can apply behavioral principles to create content or even to manage a defense system. Yeah. And finally, what I wanted to say is like the final lesson is that too much automation is a killer. Has anyone ever watched a movie that was completely generated, the script was completely generated by a machine? No? Okay, you can go on YouTube and watch Sunspring. This is like 11 minutes of your life that you will never get back. And similarly, The Safe Zone. This is another, so both of these movies were completely written by machine and then acted by human actors. They do not make much sense. And the problem is that when you generate something by algorithm, only by algorithm, it doesn't work. Because algorithms are stupid, right? They just maximize a function. So it's like the ChatGPT. ChatGPT is mimicking the communication really well, but it doesn't learn. It's just learned everything there is. It was trained on a lot of data, lots of variables, 175 billion variables, but it doesn't learn when you communicate with it, okay? And if you think it does, well, think again, okay? That's basically the reality. And the problem with algorithms, because they're maximizing the functions, they are a little bit like the game of Trivial Pursuit, right? They're just like chatbots on steroids. They're not actually learning much. There are many different options where you can end up, but ultimately it's just one thing. And they're very easily fooled, okay? So this is an example where we just put a sticker and the algorithm does not recognize that it's a banana anymore. It also recognizes white noise as something. More examples here. And one of my favorites, we still didn't figure this out. I mean, you are laughing, but this is my life. Like, we're trying to figure out how to read these things. And machines are really confused. And they are confused because they're not learning like human beings. They're not learning based on associations. Okay. So what happens when we, have overuse of automation? So if you go on LinkedIn, for example, every post looks like just any other post. Like, I'm happy to inform you, that I've accepted a new job. How many of these posts do you read a day? Like a lot, right? And basically what the point here is that you really need to value human uniqueness, okay? In all of this. I need to make a quick footnote about ethics on all of this because I know you're going to ask me. So I'm just going to show you a nice picture first, and then we're going to go into something horrible. Okay, very quickly. Right, of course, humans are biased. Okay, this is like bias at work, where we have very few female CEOs in the Fortune 500 companies and very few women of color there. This is a periodic table of human biases that me and my colleague Karen Renaud put together. Oh, the website is cut off, but the website is bigbadbiasbook.org. You can find this thing in there, and download is basically up for grabs. Sorry, bigbadbiasbook.com. Yeah, that's the website. And algorithms are also biased, right? We can give the algorithm the blurred Obama image and it will give us the white guy, simply because it was trained on partial data. Here, this is an X algorithm. Again, it's, we have two long pictures and it would basically select two white guys, except for instead of the properly selecting two pictures. We also have a lot of algorithmic problems at work. For example, Amazon had a selection algorithm that was really discriminative towards women. This is my personal favorite. A friend of mine sent this to me. So it basically, when she searched Google for professional haircuts, this is professional, this is not, okay, according to Google. And again, the problem here is that it's incomplete data sets that these things are trained on. Yeah, but the good thing is that when we put humans and machines together, the human-machine teaming can solve these biases. Okay, there are biases on both sides, but in teamwork, we actually can get rid of those biases. All right, so I'm going to leave you with this one thought. Okay, any system, it doesn't matter whether you are in a small company, in a big company, in a university, in private sector, in public sector, there are two components to success, and this is insight and operational efficiency. Insight is always human, okay? Machines cannot do insight. And operational efficiency is always machine-driven, okay? It's always automation. And really the point is, where is the golden balance, right? Where is that balance for you personally, for your company, for the area where you're working in? That's me. Thank you.
So many of you were now going to select a movie or a series the same way. And curiosity, so is the happy time, is the time for asking questions. So we're going to have the chance to ask about 3 questions. There's a question, please pass the mic. 1, 2, 1, 2, sound test. Can you hear me? Ganna, can you hear me? Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Ganna.
I was yesterday in Bogotá. Today I'm here in Medellín, so it's brilliant and marvelous to see what is happening around the world and here in our region as well in this field. So I have 2 questions for you, and my name is Catalina Mendez. Here we go. So the first one is, how do you think AI and behavioral science can complement each other in the next decade? That's the first one.
Sorry, in where? Can you repeat?
In the next decade.
In the next?
Decade.
In the next decade. Okay, got it. Okay.
And the second one, if you can elaborate on that, because you talk about that in your intervention, what are some limitations of current AI systems when it comes to modeling real human behavior, if you can elaborate on that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to start with the second question because it's easier. Yeah, lots of limitations. So basically any algorithm is just maximizing or minimizing a function, right? And humans do not behave like that. So algorithms usually predict things in very narrow environments when we know the boundaries very well. So, you can always predict pretty well. But if you don't know something, like for example, in cybersecurity, right, it's all about unknown unknowns. And so we know that in these types of environments, humans are a lot better than machines, and it will be very difficult for an algorithm to predict the behavior or have even a decent go at what could happen. So yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of limitations in terms of just modeling rational behavior. Well, another very quick, maybe quick two examples. Algorithms cannot do sarcasm, and they cannot really do jokes. You probably noticed, right? Okay, so regarding the trend, like what I can see in the next 10 years, I think there is definitely a lot of potential for these systems to be incorporated into behavioral design and behavioral change studies. So when we have randomized control, so I gave some examples yesterday in Bogota, how we kind of do quite traditional studies, but we implement different tools like avatars, things like that. So I think that we will see more of that. I think it's also will be coming, the field will become a lot more rapid, because of the proliferation of these tools, you can do things very quickly. Well, I'm hoping that it's my hope. I don't know whether this will be true, but I'm also hoping that the studies will be cheaper to run, because previously it was very expensive. If we had any, algorithmic component in the experiment, that would take time and money. Now I think it will be a lot cheaper to do a lot of interesting things.
Thank you so much. I would say through or behind of science, behavioral science, we have two challenges: ethic or data protection, and what is the level of, how do you manage the moral ethic, or what is the level of protection data in this topic?
So obviously, all studies that we run are have ethical approvals. But yeah, there are big challenges. I think the biggest challenge is the data. So when we combine data sets, and that problem is particularly relevant to private sector. Let me give you an example. So for example, I come to you and I say, sorry, I didn't catch the name, but can I use your data for, your location data for research purposes? And you probably will say yes. But now imagine that I take this, your location data, I merge it with your purchasing data, I merge it with some other private data. So now suddenly I know something about you that you don't want me to know. So for example, we had a retailer that we worked with in the UK, and from 3 months worth of data, we were able to predict whether someone would get pregnant next year. As researchers, of course, we cannot use that information, but imagine that a company gets a hold of this type of insight. Of course, they would want to exploit it, right? And unfortunately, at the moment, we only have regulation at UK level, or sorry, EU level, or in US it's sectorial regulation, so it's not a lot. And yeah, you can really get, there are some really interesting stories of how that was exploited. Let me give you maybe one very quick example, if I have time. I'll be quick. Yeah. So in New York, Yellow Cab company released the entire database at one point, and the idea was that they wanted developers to work on this data to figure out how to best send taxis to different parts of the city. Guess who were the people that used this database most? Any guesses? So you have data from yellow cabs, all the data. And data looks like this. Car with ID, artificial ID, I don't know, ABC, went from point A to point B. That's the data. Who do you think used it most? The paparazzis. Because if you are following Scarlett Johansson, you don't need to follow her anymore. You're like, okay, the pickup happened here, the drop-off happened over there, and imagine that over there is a private residence. You no longer have to follow Scarlett Johansson. You just need to get a hold of the database, right? So this is an example when you have a benign goal, right? You just want to kind of release the data for the greater good, but then someone, exploits it. So it's very difficult to predict. And if you think about Facebook, like who would know that Facebook would be, a threat to democracy when it started? It was just, let's hang out, friends online, and all of that kind of thing. But now we have all of the things with political micro-targeting and other things that Meta is in trouble with. Yeah.
Estamos una pregunta por allí.
You can have my computer.
Thank you. Ganna, thank you very much for your presentation.
No worries.
Here in this audience, you have a lot of institutions and organizations that are probably thinking about implementing data science and AI for their businesses. What would be your recommendation for these people to start implementing? Of course, you have like a big architecture to implement data science and AI, but what will be those first steps that you will take at the first?
Yeah, I got the question. So look, the first thing that we do when we go to any organization is we figure out, do they actually need AI? So if you are not using statistics, like if you're just working with Excel sheets and you're not like doing a lot of analysis, AI might not be the answer for you, okay? I'm not saying that it might be, but it might not be. Because if you're not doing standard AI, you definitely cannot do generative AI. So, you just need to be like realistic. And a lot of times we can solve the problem with simple behavioral intervention. So I often give this example, but we were working with a factory once, and the factory engaged us and said, okay, we want to have automation where there are two machines and engineers go to both machines to get data. And based on this data, they're making some decisions, okay? And the problem was that all engineers were going to one machine, so the other one was constantly empty, and this one there was constantly a queue. And so they wanted us to calculate how many minutes it takes. So a slot opens here, then slot opens here. So basically you randomize the use. And we said, okay, well, this algorithm, if we do it, is going to cost you $1 million. But have you done the simple thing? Did you ask the engineers why they're going to this one machine? Right? So we went and we did the study with them, so we collected the data, and it turned out that the majority of them thought that one machine was more accurate than the other, okay? And then we came at night on Sunday, and I said, well, since I'm in charge of this consultancy project, can we do anything? The CEO said, yeah, anything you want. We switched the machines, okay, at night on a Sunday. And sure enough, the next week, the queue was queuing to the wrong machine that was inaccurate, right? So all we had to do is a debrief. So basically, yeah, the first thing, let's say, have a reality check. Do you need an algorithm, or can you do a simple behavioral intervention that would, resolve the problem? Do a simple experiment. So the second thing, if you really want to get into the data science component, I think the whole data hygiene is a big thing. So start thinking like how you're collecting data, what it is for. Does your data get outdated? Does it need to be updated? Do you collect a lot of rubbish? Like, if, for example, with sports companies, we often come and they measure like 200 different things about athletes, and only like 2 variables matter for the result, right? So the first thing is like, do this cleanup. And then probably think about your workforce. Do you have the people who will model, or do you need to outsource that? And if you have to outsource that, it's probably not for you, because you do need to have the team on the ground. So yeah, there's 3 things. Yeah, like, do you need it? Data and people.
Thank you, Ganna.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I'm around for the whole thing, so catch me in the break if you have other questions.
Great.
Our next session is special. It talks about the moment where science meet daily life. It's a good thing. These paths that we open with behavioral science in Confama. Behavioral science have proof how more than 90% of our decisions are automatic. That, taking that into account, for many of the ones that are connected and applied into life, behavioral sciences has many questions. How to design for those decisions that are invisible and that some cases are very important to be able to bring opportunities to the lives of people. That's true. So we're going to see how a mega study that involves more than 300,000 people is actually answering that question that you're telling, and how a innovative methodology like notch cartography can help us to intervene with very good precision in the right moment. So we have an expert for the experimental design. Linda Gandhi, professor for the Walter School from the University of Pennsylvania, where she leads investigations that make a match with the architecture of decisions and cognitive biases. And also we have John Arboleda, he's leader of the Habits and Science in Confama, who has brought inventions that improves daily life in our territory. With you, Linda Gandhi and John Arboleda, with the presentation